the second episode of the A.D.C. Sports Podcast. I'm your host, alongside my partners, Alex Bengera, Chase Geringer, and a new addition to our team, Gabe Levy. On the agenda today, we will look back at the biggest steals in the NFL draft, and then we'll look at some of the impact the draft will have on teams starting at Week 1. We will also share our reactions to parts 3 and 4 of The Last Dance. We will also discuss NFL free agency, MLB 2020, and the NCAA to allow players to profit off of their likeness starting in the season of the 2021 to 2022. As always, for the best sports news and insight, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link will be provided on our Instagram page at A.D.C. Sports. So let's hop right into the action with the NFL draft. So the first thing, and I want to start with Alex here, is who he thinks the biggest steals were of days 2 and 3 of the NFL draft. And Alex, who do you think those players were?
Well, I believe the greatest steal, and people may think this is pretty surprising, I think it's Jake Fromm for one reason. He can lead a team to a championship. I believe he's a franchise quarterback. And I think he's the fourth best quarterback going into this draft. And I know that's very debatable, but that's my personal opinion, and I know many people would disagree with me on that.
It's also interesting because, you look at him and, being picked in I think it was the 5th round, I believe, and he was going to a team in Buffalo, which has their franchise quarterback in Josh Allen. So it's really interesting that you say that, and this is where I want to bring Gabe in, and I want to see, Gabe, what surprises you about where Jake Fromm went?
Well, it surprised me knowing that Josh Allen is the quarterback of the Bills. But back to Alex, what Alex said about him being the biggest steal, I disagree with this because the only reason that Georgia were so good was because of their defense, and that's the only reason.
Yeah, and who do you think was the biggest steal in the draft, Gabe?
Well, there could be a few possible players.
The day 2 and 3.
Yeah, of course. Maybe I know T. Higgins. He was the first pick of the second round, but still he was easily first round material.
Right. And you also look at guys like Xavier McKinney. Even like a guy like Josh Jones, he fell the 3rd round, I believe. You look at you also look at guys like the Jets got Denzel Mims out of Baylor, and there were a lot of good players falling late, and then this is where I want to bring Chase in, because I want to hear Chase's opinion on another player who wasn't really expected to go in the 1st round, but was people were really surprised with where he ended up, and this is Jalen Hurts, who's heading to Philadelphia. Chase, what are your reactions on this?
Okay, well, Howie Roseman is an idiot right now. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he did not have to be taken here. And he's just downgrading Carson Wentz. I mean, Carson Wentz has already proven that he could play at the elite level. I mean, why would they take his replacement now? He's young and he's still got a long ways to go. And yeah, I just really don't get why Jalen Hurts. And they could have gotten Jacob Eason and also Jake Fromm. And Jalen Hurts isn't just the best quarterback in this situation. And I'd actually give him an F grade in here because Howie Roseman just made the wrong mistake, and he is, I don't know what's going through his mind right now.
Well, Chase, the thing is, I agree with you, but I disagree. I believe that pick was not a great pick, but Carson Wentz is very injury prone, all right? And Jalen Hurts, I do believe he fits into the Eagles' scheme. So, I mean, I do understand the pick, but most people thought this was a terrible pick. And as a Giants fan, I'm happy.
I think it's not a very good pick because, sure, Carson Wentz, he could get injured a lot, but he was an MVP candidate just 3 years ago or 2 years ago, which shows that he can play at the elite level, like Chase said. Sure, he may get injured, but there were bigger needs on this team, like a wide receiver who they needed. They got one in the 1st round.
Yeah, they got one in Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, but maybe some extra help.
And I'm also kind of shocked because they could have traded up to get CeeDee Lamb. They could have given that 2nd round pick who they got for Jalen Hurts to the Cowboys so they can get CeeDee Lamb. But I really don't know what's going through Howie Roseman's mind, and it's just a bad pick here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a huge controversy in, the Eagles fan base and throughout the league. And this brings us to our next topic here, which is the quarterbacks who were taken. The top. I would say the top 3 quarterbacks were taken in day 2 and 3. Jalen Hurts to the Eagles, Jacob Eason to the Colts, and Jake Fromm to the Bills. Out of those 3, which player do you think will pan out to be the best NFL player out of the 3 of them?
I think Jacob Eason will go the furthest, just simply because the Colts they signed Phillip Rivers to a 2-year deal, I believe, and they are looking at the future. Jacob Eason, I believe, will be their quarterback for the future after Phillip Rivers leaves, which I think will be after his 2-year deal. So, and he'll have 2 years in the system to learn all of it, and then he'll have a fresh year. Basically, his 3rd year would be his rookie year, because unless Phillip Rivers gets injured, he's most likely not going to be getting any play time, which is good for the Colts, but not good for him. But I think he will pan out to be the best.
Jake Fromm has great experience, and I do believe he will go to a different team in a couple years. And if he's a franchise quarterback, I feel like he will thrive.
Yeah, I agree with Gabe here, definitely. I mean, Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm did replace Jacob Eason at quarterback at Georgia. And then Jacob Eason did go to Washington, and he proved everybody wrong. Like, he completed 64.2% of his passes there. And I know he can be a great quarterback. He has a strong arm. And I think the Colts are going to be a playoff contender in a few years.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. No love for Jalen Hurts out of our team here. It's definitely interesting.
I think eventually Jalen Hurts will have some type of a good career, but not at the Eagles.
So obviously the Bengals were a huge storyline of this draft. Whether it was Joe Burrow or T. Higgins. My question for you guys is, and obviously you can't. It's very hard to build a team in 1 year and just go all in. But how good can the Bengals really be this year, Chase? I mean, how good do you really think they can be this year? What's their max potential for the 2020 season?
All right, I know many people might disagree with me here, but I mean, I really don't think the Bengals will turn around because their staff is still the same, and they're still the same, and they haven't gotten out of that 2-15 mode or whatever it was. And although Joe Burrow can change the team around, there's no way they're gonna be that good in just 1 year. And also, Joe Burrow had a great O-line, great wide receivers. Now he's coming in.
That's really important. If I could just say something, when he transferred from Ohio State down to LSU, his first year, he went 9-3. It was an okay season. It really took, once he had the right staff and, the right players around him, the right coaches, and he really got a hang of the system, then he was unstoppable. But I really can't see him walking in there day one and just being insane, because he doesn't, obviously very, very talented quarterback, but
add on to what Chase said, he can't Joe Burrow could make a great impact on the offense, but can't really do anything for the defense. And the Bengals have a terrible defense, so defense does win championships. So
I agree with Chase and Alex, because sure, the Bengals may have had a pretty good draft, but their offseason or their free agency, I don't think I could name one player that they signed this year. I think they still need a lot of help on the defense. They still need some help on offense, just not as much after getting Joe Burrow and T. Higgins in the draft. But that offensive line is still a question.
Back to what I was saying is, Joe Burrow was a backup at Ohio State, right? So he didn't have that raw talent that Ohio State really wanted to invest in. And that's why he transferred, because he didn't have that raw talent. And Ohio State obviously had guys who they thought were more talented than Joe and who played ahead of him. So my thought is, I really think he's going to need a really good team and really good coaching staff to be able to really blossom in the NFL. And this also brings us to another top quarterback who was selected, and that is Tua Tagovailoa, who was selected 5th overall by the Dolphins. And doctors, said, Tua says, he's going to need to be told that he's 100% ready to go by doctors. until he steps on that field. And I think the Dolphins really need to consider their future when they're if they're going to play in week 1. Are we really? Is their offensive line ready? We gotta because this guy, he's had a lot of injuries, and they have to be able to protect him. So my question for you guys is, when does it seem like the right time to put? When do you think will be the right time for Tua to step onto the field in Miami?
Well, I think drafting Tua was a great pick. Like during the draft, they were saying that more, I think about like 10 years ago, they missed on Drew Brees because of injuries. And this year they showed that they aren't going to look at the injuries because, sure, he was very injured past few years in Alabama. But the tape that he showed to all of the teams, he looked 100%. And I don't think he'll go in the first year as the starter, but I think Ryan Fitzpatrick will, maybe even Josh Rosen. But he's gonna learn the scheme and the offense. And they got Austin Jackson in the first round to protect them, and I think they're gonna be a really good team in a few years.
Just one more thing. You got to feel for Josh Rosen. I mean, I don't think he's gotten a fair shot anywhere that he's gone. I feel like Arizona, he comes in year after they draft a quarterback. Miami comes in year after they draft a quarterback. So I personally feel for Josh Rosen that he's not getting a fair chance. And I think that's someone other teams should definitely look into because I think he's a very talented quarterback. Alex.
Well, I have to disagree with Gabe. I think the Dolphins should start Tua now. They took a big risk picking Tua. They went all in. They tanked for many years. I think if they waited all these years, they should start him now. And I mean, let's be honest. Like, are they really going to start Ryan Fitzpatrick? I mean, no disrespect, but I mean,
Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't have a terrible year last year. Sure, they started the season off 0-7, but to end the season, they beat the Patriots. And at the end of the season, they beat they beat the Eagles, who were a playoff team. Ryan Fitzpatrick proved that he could win games. And no matter how bad they were at the start of the year, I think he can lead that team to at least a few wins next year. And because they tanked for Tua for so long, I don't see there's any reason to rush him back into the field, because then the next injury he may be out forever and he may never be playing football ever again.
Yeah, Alex, I really don't agree with you right now. I mean, if you're gonna be a GM and you're gonna start a person after like a scary hip injury like that, I mean, you got to be out of your mind. And also, they got an O lineman in Austin Jackson, but he's still developing. So I mean, you can't trust a guy that's a rookie coming into the league. Like, you have to sit him out for a year, and then after Austin Jackson develops and their alignment gets better, then you might be able to start him. But you don't want to have that risk that he could be out forever.
Right, and carrying on with this topic of week 1 quarterback decisions, another team that's got a huge decision on who's going to be starting week 1 is the New England Patriots. Right now, I think the likely favorite is Jarrett Stidham, but there are so many different routes the Patriots can take here. And Gabe, who do you think the Patriots are going to start week 1?
Well, I think there are many different options that they could go for. They could go for whoever's on their team right now, like Jared Stidham or Brian Hoyer, who they signed during free agency. But I think the smart decision was to go for someone like Cam Newton or Andy Dalton from free agency, because Cam Newton and Andy Dalton were both dropped recently, or maybe even trade for someone like Josh Rosen, like you were saying before.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely someone who I really think has got talent.
Because Cam Newton and Andy Dalton both proved that they can play at the top tier. Cam Newton won an MVP. He made it to the Super Bowl. He didn't win, but still. Andy Dalton made multiple playoff appearances. He didn't win much, but